Hello, this is Heather Hoffman, and I'm here today to share with you some tips and tricks for heat embossing on our beautiful washi tape. It's one question we get quite often, how to heat emboss, if you can heat emboss on it, and then the best way to do it. So I'm going to start off by showing you how to heat emboss with our washi tape that has coordinating stamps and coordinating dies. So I'm going to use the Eucalyptus Fantasy for this example. There's more than one option for this, but I'm just using this one to kind of show you how they work together. And I'm starting off by peeling off. I use Leah's trick to keep a little bit of parchment paper in there to help make it easier to peel off and kind of get started on each piece of the wide washi. The adhesive is really good, so that kind of helps make it easier to peel the full piece off. I'm adhering this onto a piece of white cardstock. This is 80-pound Nina solar white cardstock. It's kind of a decent weight, but not super heavy. It'll make it easier to die cut. Trimming off the little excess that I have there. And I'm going to pull out the coordinating image from this stamp set. So these perfectly pair up. A MISTI or stamp positioner system is going to make it a little bit easier to do this technique, just because it'll allow you to line everything up and then stamp perfectly in place. So I'm going to start by getting that stamp image and just kind of lay it over and match it up to the image on there. It kind of took me a second to spin it around and find the right alignment, but it's pretty easy to match it up. Helps to get your head directly over, so excuse my head popping over the top, but I wanted to make sure it was cleanly lined up and perfectly matched. Now I can pick that up with the lid of my MISTI. This right here is going to be your best friend for embossing on the washi tape. This is a powder tool. There's lots of different varieties, but you're going to want to use it very generously on there. There's a little bit of adhesive residue on the washi tape because it comes on a roll. So by doing that first, that's going to keep my embossing powder from sticking to just everything on there. Now I can stamp over it with my clear embossing ink. I'm going to do it a couple times just to make sure with all that powder I put on, I want to make sure I have plenty of ink on there so that I'll get a clear impression. And now that I've done that, I'm going to sprinkle over this. I'm going to use gold embossing powder on this one. There's already kind of gold on the image, so the gold embossing powder I think is just going to kind of enhance what's already there and add a little more shine and sparkle and kind of a little more dimensional look to that washi tape. It's kind of fun because you can use the stamp image and do your own coloring with the image. You can see kind of where it's stuck there where I didn't use that powder tool on that top. That's why you definitely want to make sure and use that powder tool really well on the images that the part you're embossing there. And a brush will get any little stray powders off of the edges that you don't want on there as well. But yeah, with the washi tape, it's kind of fun how that image is already beautifully colored in. So you get a really stunning effect with not a lot of effort. It's a great way to make a quick card, and adding the embossing just bumps it up a notch. Now, as you heat emboss this, you want to be careful not to melt the washi. So you want to be careful not to get your heat gun too close to your washi tape and keep it moving a lot. Don't just kind of hold it steady in one spot. I don't know if you can kind of see. It looks like it's closer than it is there, but I turned it sideways so you could kind of see the distance. Just kind of do it as close as you have to and for as long as you have to, just to melt that embossing powder. And kind of feel free to move to a different spot and come back and hit little stray areas that maybe didn't get fully melted on there. But you can see how beautifully that works and the gorgeous shine you get from there. I went ahead after this and die cut it out with the coordinating dies and assembled it onto a simple card there. A little bit of foam adhesive and some gold splatters and a sentiment in the middle. All right, now I'm going to show you another way that you can use this washi tape. This is using our Rainbow with Splatters wide washi tape. And I'm just going to emboss a large image right over the front of that washi tape, which again is just another way to get a beautiful card with the background already created. You could create your own watercolor background or colored or use other pattern paper, but this Rainbow washi has such great shine on there. And it's super fun to just add a large sentiment over the top. So again, I've adhered that onto a piece of white cardstock, and I'm using my powder tool again very generously over the top of that. And I'm going to use my MISTI tool to line that stamp image. And then I can do the same thing where I'm going to stamp it a couple times just to make sure I have plenty of ink there, despite all the powder that I put over it. And then I'll have a really clear image and impression. And this time I'm going to use white embossing powder. I just love how the white pops over that gorgeous rainbow background and looks so pretty and detailed. And the same thing, just sprinkle it over really well. Shake off any excess once you've got it all on there. You can see just how already putting that powder on, how much that image just pops off that background. And there really isn't a lot of stray on this one. I did a little better getting all the edges with the embossing powder tool. But I just used my fingers on this one to brush off the little extra because there was so little of it. And then I'm going to use the same thing. I'm going to use my heat gun over it, being careful just to keep it moving a little bit as I go around, and only using the heat tool just long enough to melt that embossing powder and no extra time on there. And moving it and coming back if I need to hit any spots. All right, that could be finished just as is, but I thought it would be fun to come back in and just add a few of the additional images. It's a little bit hard on this to do all of those extra images at the same time, just because you can't really see where they are because you're stamping with clear embossing ink. So I didn't want to try and mix those in after the fact. So I went ahead and just heat emboss the other, and then I can come in and add these other images around and follow the same and just kind of build them. And then I can see exactly where I'm placing them. And I ended up doing this in the same color, but it also would be very fun to do these additional pieces in a different color. Like you could do gold embossing powder, and it would just kind of add another layer. All right, I'm going over it once more just to be safe with that embossing powder tool, just to make sure any stray static or anything else is removed. And same plan as before, go ahead and stamp it 2 times to get plenty of ink on there and a great impression. And then I can sprinkle my embossing powder over those little areas where I did the additional stamping. And then heat set those the same way. And especially on that center part, I'm being really careful when I pull out my embossing tool because I want to not overheat the areas that are already melted. So I'm going around the edges and just quickly hitting those. You can see how quickly they melt on there. And then we are all done. So once I finished this, I went ahead and trimmed it down. One piece of advice I would say, don't die cut it right after this. I did notice when I die cut that some of the pieces kind of came free a little bit on the heat embossing. So die cut it first and then do that and finish off that way. All right, thanks so much for coming by today. I hope you enjoyed and have a wonderful day.